All right, guys, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, the 27th, and another big day of price action. So, what the hell happened today? What a big move. Let's kind of just go over the averages and the price action, which was pretty nutty, I would say, today. Well, we've got a bunch of things really kind of took place and shaped today. You had the S&P, really was the Nasdaq, which was down 3.25%. It seemed to be a couple different events are coming to a head. You had a lot of things in the headlines, which has continued to be what it's been like for the last couple weeks. But you had the guy over from Citron being negative on Twitter. And then you had a couple other names that were in trouble today. Facebook has been continued to be in the headlines, and it seems to be spreading over to a couple other names. Tesla and the autonomous driving took down. One of the generals of the market got hit pretty hard. Nvidia was down almost 8% today. Did not break that 100-day moving average, but still, just failed to break out last week. So one of the things that I picked up on is, I think a couple traders were saying, oh, well, this is, related to that and so forth. I don't know. I think it's just a general risk off. I look at some other groups of stocks that there really wasn't many headlines on. You look at your Chinese internet names, they were down over 4% today and really got hit pretty hard. You look at biotech today as well. Biotech got hit close to 4.5%, down 4.25%. So there doesn't always have to be a reason or something in the headlines. It just could be just an overall things to me look like they're breaking down a bit. We had that bounce yesterday. And I think what we said in the video yesterday, and I think a lot of people just kind of realized this too yesterday, is just one day is not a trend. And we had this nice bounce, and we had some constructive things. I talked about a lot of different charts in last night's recap, saying, hey, this could be constructive. Watch, for example, what was I talking about? I was talking about how we got above the price action yesterday, got above Friday's open. However, that no longer stands. And I think a lot of the stocks, you could pretty much just erase that. You could have let that be your stop. And, things happen pretty quickly on the downside. We started the day again. Whenever we're up pre-market, it seems like it's the majority of times have been in the last couple weeks that it's been a recipe for disaster. There's been a couple times where we've hung on. But those have been, I think you can count on one hand how many times that has happened. More often than not, when futures are bid up pre-market, we are getting just take the price action is just getting taken apart to the downside. So we're going to be back at the 200-day moving average, and you go through some stocks now. Clearly, I know everybody's Facebook saturated, but it is what it is. It's below the 200-day moving average. Google held on yesterday. Google looked like it might retest or break through the 200-day moving average yesterday, which I think it did, and it closed above. But that's a break of the 200-day moving average. So things are starting to kind of take shape to the downside, and buyers are going to have to come back into this market. And I think right now, while the volatility is this high, what I did was just kind of increase my cash position. I already had a plan in the market to kind of get out of some names that were rallying into the open, which I thought was a really nice gift. So I was in Microsoft, I was in Amazon, I was in a couple other names. Lowe's, I got out of the remaining portion of that. And then once I saw just further deterioration, there's some option positions that I decided just to move a little bit more to cash until this volatility subsides. I think we're either, we're at a point where things are really going to start to further get ugly, which it's tough for things to really get further to have further ugliness when the sentiment is so bad. I think the fear and greed index is still around a 7, but if they want to continue to press to the downside, we are seeing these exaggerated moves where people are really kind of coming in, whether it's high frequency trading, are really kind of pushing things down when they know they've got some motivated sellers taking place. So until that subsides, the volatility subsides, and again, it's a great barometer. I think being very objective with this price action, because there are a lot of opportunities on both sides of the market, especially to the short side as things are falling very quickly. You want to have an objective view, and you don't really want to be tied to a bunch of positions in this market. But just to kind of, well, I've got Google up. You could see that there was a really big put buyer that we saw today, and a lot of big puts, really, to come to think of it, today. But you can see this one particular order that came upon in my system, $2.5 million order, May 995 puts, which still has some further to go. So people are really seem to be pressing some of these orders, and I don't have every put order in here because a lot of them were just straight on the index side. But you could see some pretty big orders that hit EA Sports, which also really got beaten up. A lot of the software names, which have been some of the stronger names. So that could be the other thing. Some of these names that have been some of the best performers over the last year are really getting taken out. So, you look at Amazon, for example. Amazon, I think, which is one of the best companies, one of the strongest out there. I think it's very important to watch Amazon in the next couple of days. This tried to go higher and resume that trend higher, and we started the day looking great, and then we have one of these big bearish engulfing candles. So I think you have to be aware that we could really start to move further to the downside quickly, or if not, buyers will, I think, eventually make a stand and come back into this market, but that remains to be seen. Other names, we did see one of the things that I noticed in a couple different names, like Apple. Apple, we saw calls right off the open, and then we saw 2 or 3 put buyers come in. So the order flow, it's becoming a tug of war with some names, where you're starting to see a little bit of calls come in, and then bigger put orders come in. And I could show you just on the side here in Trade Alert a little bit about what I'm seeing. And again, oops, let's see, for whatever reason, Trade Alert did not like that. And I want to see just the sweep. So yeah, you could see this was the one that caught my idea. Calls coming in the beginning of the day. Also in the first half hour, some June 190 calls. And then you also see some of these puts coming in too. You can see a pretty big put order that came in the afternoon. This one was calls. Maybe it was a little bit more tilted to the call side for this particular name, but there were a couple put orders, and clearly, yeah, here's a couple more of them. Here was one that came in at 941. So yeah, you started to see some two-way activity. This was another one. This also came in on 941. So two-way activity. So yeah, it's basically kind of a tug of war. Same thing with the Qs today. Look at the order flow in the Qs. We actually did see some calls that went up. There were some calls here. This was at the end of the day, but then we saw some puts as well. So we're really seeing, that bit of the tug of war. This was a big put order. This was $830,000. This was right around 120, as things started to kind of pick up to the downside. So, you've got a pretty decent tug of war that's going on. A lot of the smaller trades that, a lot of the aggressive call orders that we are seeing are small orders. Sienna caught my eye this morning. Normally in a market where the volatility is not that bad, maybe Sienna would have taken off. They came in a couple times and bought some April 13th calls in Sienna, but I got out of these pretty quick. If it's not going to work, I'm not going to stay in a trade, especially if it's a short-term trade. So I got in these for right around that 73 cents, and I think I sold them for 60, and took a loss on that particular name. But I'm not going to stick in this. You got to be really quick with some of this stuff. And while the volatility is this high, there's plenty of opportunities to scalp using the SPY and the Qs right now. Remember what happens again when volatility increases? The correlations pick up very much. So all stocks start to behave, especially ones that are in the major indices and the Qs and the SPYs. The correlation is really going to pick up, and they're going to start to move together in some aspect. They're not going to be move exactly the same percentage, but they're going to have similar characteristics. So you could be a Qs and you could be a SPY trader if you want to scalp. If you don't want to scalp, I was talking about this in the webinar that I gave. You just have to be a little bit patient. Right now, I think I was looking at, I gave this webinar where we kind of just analyzed different names, different charts. I mean, look at Boeing, for example. I mean, what does this look like to you? Fortunately, and again, this is not what I want to see really happen, but you kind of have a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder forming. Now, it hasn't broken this neckline. So, again, you have to be patient. We don't know if this is going to allow us to short Boeing and maybe down into this line. Or it could recoup here and hang in a little bit longer. All right. So a couple of names that I do like, and I'll leave the video with just that. A couple of names that I'm watching. I talked about the defense names. I think those are holding up pretty well to the long side. RTN. I actually started a trade, and again, this is why I'm just like basically starting trades, because the end of the day volatility, or we are seeing a lot of volatility at the end of the day. So, this one fell right out of bed. Looked like it was great, going to hang in there above the 50-day moving average, and completely got taken out. So, literally just have a starter position in this one. Also, I think NOC looks pretty interesting, but that's a bearish engulfing pattern. So you just kind of have to be patient if you're a swing trader, and focus on when things are really providing true signals and the volatility comes in a little bit. All right, so that's enough for tonight. A lot of price action going on. I'm sitting much more in a cash than I've probably been in the last year plus. And that's where I'll stay until things kind of straighten themselves out a little bit. All right, thanks for watching and have a great night.